Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today I want to talk about deep conversations, something which happens a lot when I'm conducting guest interviews is that at the end of the conversation, the guest thanks me for the opportunity for a really deep conversation. And I thank them as well. And I get messages from people saying, thank you for having these deep conversations on the show. And it reminds me that so many times in my life, as far back as I can remember, I found myself in conversations with people where we've had a great conversation. It's been really deep. It's gone in all sorts of directions that we didn't know it was going to go into. And one of us has said to the other, oh God, I wish we'd recorded this because this was amazing. And now I am actually doing that. I am recording these amazing conversations with people. I'm having these amazing conversations with people, which are being recorded and then broadcast. So for me, that's a wonderful thing. I'm enjoying it. My guests are enjoying it. Listeners are enjoying it. But so what? The point I would like to make today is anyone can have a deep conversation with anyone, actually. Some of the most profound conversations I've had have been with a random person I met on the street. I was walking along the street in the little local town. It was during the lockdowns in the UK, which if you're watching this or listening to this years ahead from now, this was a period of time when a decision was made that everyone had to stay at home to try to protect everyone else from a respiratory disease. And a lot of people were encouraged to wear paper masks over their mouth and nose. So I was walking along the street and I saw a woman coming towards me. She was wearing a mask. I was not wearing a mask. And I didn't know this woman, never seen her before. And she stopped and said, "You're not wearing a mask?" And I said, "No." I said, "You are wearing a mask?" She said, "Yes, I am." And there was a moment, it was one of those moments that could have become an argument. At that time, there were a lot of arguments taking place between the people who wore masks and people who didn't about whether it was a good idea or not a good idea, and should they be doing it and shouldn't they be doing it, and should they be telling someone else what they should or shouldn't be doing anyway in the first place, etc., and so on and so forth. But that didn't happen. I said to her, "Well, you must do what you feel is best for you and your family." And she looked at me with extraordinary gratitude that I'd said that, and I meant it. And we then had a beautiful conversation about the vulnerabilities that she was coping with in her family, the difficult choices people had to make, the fact that some people were actually rather vulnerable in terms of their immune system and their wellness, the fact she felt a bit uncomfortable sometimes wearing a mask when other people were not wearing a mask. She was frightened of being judged. She was frightened of getting into an argument. It was a beautiful conversation. And then we finished it and off she went. The whole thing took about 5 minutes. Never seen her again. But there were so many really valuable essences and themes within that conversation about sovereignty, compassion, loyalty, family, self-worth, communication, acceptance, personal choice, etc. And it was just a beautiful thing. So what do I mean when I say anyone can have a deep conversation? Well, I think I base that on the idea that any of us in any moment can choose to bring ourselves more into real presence with somebody else, can bring ourselves into revealing a bit more of ourselves, whether that's sharing a thought we're having, a feeling we're having, a sensation we're having, being truthful, because that's what really leads to a deep conversation, being truthful in the moment. So let's say you're having a conversation which is more on the level of ideas, than, let's say, emotionality or a more creative, imaginative type conversation. Let's say it's purely on the level of ideas. So truthfulness in that context is the willingness to follow an idea as far as it leads you and to actually share and reveal the other ideas that are stimulated within you, and then sharing those. And then hearing what the other person is saying fully and allowing that to be and respecting their truth in what they're communicating and responding truthfully and openly to that. So we don't have to delve necessarily into the realms of huge emotionality and what's happening in our heart center and what our energy is doing and how we're feeling and so on. It can be purely on the level of ideas, or it can be more on the level of, let's say, talking around energies. I'm feeling my energy doing this. I'm sensing the energies between us are doing that. That can be a deep conversation. Or another conversation can be, when you said that, I felt grief wave through me, and then I felt some irritation, and then I felt shame about that. And I'm just wondering what you were feeling in that moment. That's another way of getting into a depth conversation, going into emotionality. Or the psychological perspective, which could be, I'm noticing I've got some attitudes coming up around this. And the attitude I notice I've got is this. And the way you just said that seemed to me a bit like you might be making assumptions about me and maybe projecting something onto me, which I do not prefer, actually, but I would like to know what you are actually thinking. So a more psychological angle is another way of getting into a depth conversation. Or a spiritual angle, more along the lines of, I'm actually feeling some ideas or messages coming through at the moment that I want to share with you that are coming from something much bigger than myself. I'm feeling something here that is more to do with the divine, the spiritual. All of these things are going on with us all the time to greater or lesser levels of awareness in any given moment. And some of us are more tuned into some of these levels more than others. And some of us are better at talking about one or other of these levels than the other, perhaps. Some of us are better at talking than we are at listening. Some of us are better at listening than we are at talking. Some of us are better at giving away our ideas in an open-handed fashion, unattached to whether or not someone agrees. Some of us are better at that than others. Some of us are better than others at receiving other people's ideas in an unattached fashion, wide open to receive whatever the other person's sharing with us, with no fear of being taken over or dominated or in some way overly influenced by what they have to say. So we're all different in this regard, but we all have ways into deep, deep conversations. And if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, but who am I going to have a deep conversation with? The answer is whoever you like. And actually, I will suggest that this is not something which works best by, making a plan. I want to have a deep conversation with my partner. How am I going to set it up? No, that's not usually the best way to do it. There are cases where it is, like, for example, if you're a podcaster or a podcast guest, you can choose to go into that and choose to have it be a deep conversation. But the context is already, in a way, set. But the nature of your conversation is important, and you've both already decided that in the podcasting context. Generally in life, as we're moving around, that isn't always the case. So my suggestion really is, whatever case you're in, where you're with somebody, just noticing those possibilities to go a little bit deeper. It could be that the other person starts to go deeper and you have the choice to respond and follow and go with them on that journey. That's just as interesting as noticing a feeling or a sense or a thought within yourself to take it deeper and see if they respond. And the other beautiful thing in a deep conversation is that dynamic repeats over and over again. There's always an opportunity to go deeper, 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 or not. Or maybe just, oh, that'll do for now. And maybe next time we take a little bit deeper. Some relationships are like this, where we go a certain depth to begin with, and the next time a little deeper. And the next time we don't go deep at all. We just watch a movie and eat chocolate. And then the next time, back in. So we can go back and forth like the tide, coming in and out. It's absolutely fine. And so if you have been listening to some of my guest episodes, or even on any other podcast or any other situation where you're witnessing other people's conversation and tuning in and finding, wow, that's a deep conversation. I love that. If that really calls to you and resonates for you, and if you love it, maybe have a go at doing that yourself. Just do it and enjoy. Because I am telling you, you can. You have the capacity for it. And the more you do it, the more fluid you get with it, and the more you enjoy it. And the more it enhances your life. My life is so enhanced by engaging with all these incredible guests I've had on the show. And I am already excited about the next guests I'm going to be talking to next. So thank you so much for listening and for watching. Please do check out my other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. And also, if you do love the deep conversations I have with my guests, and if you feel like you'd like to actually connect with me directly and possibly consider working with me, do go to beingspace.world, where you can find out everything else that I'm up to. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time.